Good morning. It is July 18th. It's Sunday, 2021. Today we're talking about surrendering everything. Um, this is a key component in my freedom walk. Um, it is something that I have to do, not just on a daily basis. This is something that is it literally is the one of the fundamental foundations of my freedom walk now is surrendering um, my desire to achieve an outcome in anything. And it's it sounds all great and glorious, but it's not easy. It wasn't easy to start, um, and then afterwards it becomes kind of a crutch, which is a good crutch. Um, no longer do I have to burden myself with you know the desire. Sorry, with the um, responsibility of making something happen in my life or influencing somebody to do something or um, you know purposefully trying to get an outcome to happen. um, I've been relieved of that in this process of surrender, which honestly is one of the key factors I believe where my peace comes from, is because I no longer, if it doesn't work, it doesn't work, and it wasn't for God, it wasn't supposed to happen, or it's not time yet. And so it's a pretty awesome situation. I ain't gonna lie. But let's get back to how this process started with my freedom walk and the how to get to that surrender. Because it was not something that came easy. It was not something that I knew how to do. It was not something I still. I have a fundamental or a basic idea of how to do it. I have a general idea of how to get there. Um, and I don't know how, other than just keeping it one day at a time and not getting ahead of myself, and just letting it be, one situation at a time, one day at a time, and not trying to do too much, actually doing less and surrendering more is the key term, the term I'm keying up. I can't even speak this morning. But anyways, it's a process that I'm only starting. I'm almost 3 months into my freedom walk, and um, this morning I speak about surrendering everything because it's been something on my life. It's been a burden. It's been a weight that I had to carry as a Christian, as somebody who believed in Jesus and felt the desire, the need to uphold what the word was asking, and never feeling capable of doing that in the way that I felt God was calling me into it. I want to read some scriptures that I've read before, especially in my death to self, because they correlate with the process that I went through. That I believe God showed me how to surrender in a way that was crazy. And I don't think everybody has to surrender in that way, but in some form or fashion, I do believe it's highly recommended because I know it worked. I don't know how it works for you, but it worked for me. And that was in my death to self videos for the first 25 days, since May 3rd, I think. May 2nd was my clean day. So May 3rd is the beginning of that freedom walk. Let's see here. So Romans 12:1. Therefore I urge you, brethren, by the mercies of God, to present your bodies a living and holy sacrifice acceptable to God, which is your spiritual service of worship. As a Christian, how do you do that? You know what I mean? You just have this process in your just thoughts in your mind. You're like, okay. For me, I was always in this. Says, don't do this, don't do this. This is good. This is good. But how do you present your bodies as a living and holy sacrifice acceptable to God? It's just it seems unreal. It seems unattainable. Let me read some more. So Romans 6:13. And do not go on presenting the members of your body to sin as an instrument of unrighteousness, but present yourself to God as those alive from the dead, and your members as instruments of righteousness to God. And that one seems a little more attainable. You're like, okay, stop sinning. Um, stop doing things that you know are sin in your life. And that's a process. That's something that you can try really hard at. And a lot of times it seems like it lasts for a while. You're swimming up a river and it just you burn out, unfortunately. Galatians 2:20. I have been crucified with Christ, and it is no longer I who live, but Christ lives in me. And the life which I now live in the flesh, I live by faith in the Son of God, who loved me and gave himself for me. I have been crucified with Christ, and it is no longer I who live. These verses confused me on this Christian walk. How do you attain this? How do you walk in this way? I'm not Paul. I'm not anybody that's special like these apostles and these people that speak of these things. But how do you actually do it? How do you apply it in your life? It was always something that seemed unattainable, as if it was an expectation that I had to put on myself in my Christian walk, that I always fell short. And it was very confusing on how, you want to, when you love God and you trust him and you give your life to him and you really want, like I very much wanted and desired to be the Christian God wanted me to be. And when I read these things, it was very confusing on how to achieve that Christian walk that we were expected to have, because it could only last for so long, and I just it was an unattainable goal, and I couldn't do it. Like, it was, no matter how hard I tried, no matter how much I avoided this or avoided that or didn't do this or did this, it just didn't matter. Like it would last only, it was like, to me, it was like seasons. It was like it could last for 6 months at most. And then I would struggle, or I would, lose my passion, desire, my motivation. And then I would start lapsing back. So Matthew 16:24-25. Then Jesus said to his disciples, if anyone wishes to come after me, he must deny himself and take up his cross and follow me. For whoever wishes to save his life will lose it, but whoever loses his life for my sake will find it. Crazy. I mean, like, if I give everything away and I lose my life, then what can you use me for, God? What is the purpose behind that? How can you use me, who's somebody that gives everything away, that doesn't have anything, that is struggling? It was always a thought in my head, a struggle that I had in my head of, like, how can I give everything and still have something to give? Very complexing, very confusing. But here's something that I also struggle with. Sorry, I'm kind of jumping around. Psalms 37:7. Rest in the Lord and wait patiently for him. Do not be fret because of him who prospers in his way, because of the man who carries out wicked schemes. That was always something in my mind. I'm like, how can I, be effective? But it's, how can I be effective if I don't have anything, if I'm not respected, or if I'm not, if I don't have anything in my life to give, or if I'm not capable to have time to do anything because I don't have anything and I have to continue working. Like, it just was very confusing to me on this surrendering in these ways. And I want to just go back to 2 months ago. 2.5 months ago, I felt led to do something crazy. And it was because I had sin in my life. I was struggling with addiction. I was struggling with a business that was, um, you know, all in all purposes looked 5 star and great, but in the back end of the books, we were struggling and we were failing. And more so I know now than I did before, because in reality I didn't even pay attention. I let that burden fall on my wife, unfortunately. Um, and she's seen all the stuff, but I was I was focused on, if I could just make more money, if I could just work harder, if I could put more time in, if I could just try harder. Um, and it's funny how it all worked out. When I came to the end of myself of being able to do anything, and I moved into step 7, seeking to try and find some support. I was actually introduced to step 7 for that purpose, to find some community, some people, to, instead of being in my property, in my camper, to where every night I had to go home after work and deal with the thoughts and the struggles and the the stuff in my head. And the only way to stop that was to smoke weed and drink. And it was not conducive to anything in my life. It was just causing me to avoid stuff instead of deal with them. Um, and it was funny how in this process I came to the end of myself and I surrendered in a way that seemed unconventional, seemed crazy. And it took almost a year, as I felt led to do this for almost a year. And that was to just tell my story on Facebook Live, of where I came from, the struggles that I've had, the things that I was ashamed of, um, and bear my stuff out to everybody in a way to where um, it couldn't be used against me anymore, because the enemy was using it against me in a way that was causing me to stumble. And I didn't realize the whole process, or what God was doing through that surrender, through that death to self process. But as I look back now, um, whether or not it was me talking about the stuff, me actually sharing the stuff, um, there was something happening in me where I was desperately in need of God to protect me and to lead me, and I was putting stuff out there when I was sharing that was damaging, not only to my um, business, to my personal social life, um, to everything that I held dear. Um, I was literally felt like I was sacrificing uh, my image, everything that I cared about. I was putting it out there in a way to where it was destroying people's perception of me. And it was like a surrender to God, and it was a daily one. It lasted 25 days of surrendering every morning. Something that I struggled with talking about, sharing, that I was ashamed of. And in that process of surrendering that stuff, I was also putting my trust in God. And before all that, it was really crazy, because right after I went into step 7, the next day is when I got arrested, because of me and my wife were arguing over text messages, and she would, whatnot. She had me arrested for harassment over text messages, and my business basically, because of the restraining order that was caused from that. To me, it was like that day, the next day, I lost my wife and I lost my business. And I felt like I just had everything ripped out of my hands, in a way to where I had nothing else. And so that's when I started, that death to self. I was like, I'm at the bottom. What else can they do to me? I'm going to just surrender completely to God. Um, and it has been transformational. I'm still in the process of reaping the benefits of this surrender. Like as this video here, nobody really watches, and I'm not worried about it. I do this as an act of surrender every morning. Obviously it'd be nice to do something I felt, like mattered, and I do think this matters. I just don't think it will matter for a time. Obviously I have to have a track record. I have to go through some stuff, and these videos are saved. So at any time, this is going to edify me. For one thing, as it's I have an audience of one, and that is Jesus Christ. As of right now, my audience is Him, and when I speak to what He's asking me to speak, or what I feel led to speak of. And nobody's listening except for Him in my mind right now. And I talk to you as if you're there, but nobody's there. And these struggles that I've gone through, I share them instead of hold them in. And I talk about this stuff instead of keeping it a secret and struggling with it inside my head. Because that's where I found freedom. I found freedom in letting go of that stuff and trusting God, and literally putting my hands in God's hands every day and surrendering everything. Like this whole, I find it funny, I'm going to try and keep this a little bit shorter, is that in this process, I lost my business. I lost my family for now. I have no idea. I surrender all that stuff to Him. I try not to worry about it. And when I do worry about it, I give it directly to Him, because I know I have no control over it. But it's funny how my business is starting to turn into His purpose. Everything in my life that, I thought I had to have to maintain life, is now being converted into something that I'm giving to Him in a way to where it's pretty awesome to, sit here and think about. And I try not to get ahead of God. And I'm still waiting on the fulfillment of all this stuff. And it might take, months, a year, years for this stuff to actually fully develop. But as I watch daily, which is what I have, the transformation that God is making in my life, because I'm surrendering things that I used to hold tight, and I used to concern myself with, and I used to worry. And I speak on surrender today because I feel as though I am in a beginning step in a phase to where I can actually apply these verses in my life, because of where God has put me through in the last 2.5 months. Like it's been a transformation that has changed my way of thinking about these verses, to where I can actually apply them in everything. And the things that I struggle with applying are things that I know I need to give up. Anyways, I could talk on. Let's see. Let's read some stuff. So Ephesians 5:18. And do not get drunk with wine, for this is disposition. I can't read. But be filled with the Spirit. Very much so. It's time to not be. It's time to be of a sober mind, and focused on what God has planned, and be filled with the Spirit. Hebrews 11:6. And without faith it is impossible to please Him. For he who comes to God must believe that He is, and that He is a rewarder of those who seek Him. I am reaping the benefits of this surrender in a way that is, it's hard for me to even talk about, because I'm still trying to grasp it myself, and it'll come out later. I guess it'll formulate in my mind to where, God will have me share it. I'm waiting patiently for that. But it's awesome. In this whole faith, I have faith in God in a way that I depend on Him daily to guide my feet and make my path straight. As I depend on Him in everything, like I am in this process of trying less and surrendering more, and it requires faith and dependence on God in a way that I've never had to before. And he's showing off. It's he very much is showing off, and it builds my faith. I write this stuff down because I want to know it. I want to remember it, because when the hard times come and the dry season comes or whatever, the testing comes, I want to be able to look back on what God has done in my life, and be able to also to lean on these videos or lean on these things, and when I start to lose focus, which I hope I don't, I just I want to remember what God is doing in my life, because He is definitely showing off right now. Mark 8:35, for whoever wishes to save his life will lose it, but whoever loses his life for my sake and the gospel's will save it. I'm going to end in this, that the time seems short in this world. It seems like it is, the prophecies are coming to an end, and obviously we still have some time. But there's, my mind has shifted in the last 2.5 months from feeling like I needed to have a property, a house, a business, the things in life that, I needed to achieve to be able to survive and live and have a normal life. My mind has shifted, my heart has shifted, my desire has shifted, and those are all in God's hands, and I surrender them to Him and whatever His purpose is for them, and I'm excited about it. I see the benefit of surrendering everything to Him as I take the steps to do so daily. I put my life in His hands in a way that I've never done before, and I depend on Him and I trust Him, and everything is I have no credit other than the surrender that I give. Like it's I get to watch as He has orchestrated everything in my life for His purpose, and I get to sit back as a bystander watching Him take my life and turn it into something that He can use. And I'm not having to try to do anything. I'm not having to try and make things happen. I am just in this process of wholly surrendering everything. And it's pretty awesome, and I might not be able to explain it in the best way, but that is the reality of my life right now, and I am grateful, so grateful for God and for Jesus and for the Holy Spirit that guides me daily. Thank you for listening. That's the end. I will talk to you tomorrow. God bless.